mean, what else should we bring back in case there's nuclear war, Fast Eddie? I was just thinking about that. I mean, if the justification to keep an underground mine full of retirement paperwork is, what if there's nuclear war? I mean, what else do we need to keep around? Manual typewriters? Buggies? What else can we bring back in case there's nuclear war? I mean, if that, again, if there's a nuclear holocaust that's going to annihilate us all, what I would worry about committing to memory right now is Bible scripture, not your retirement paperwork. Okay, that's first things first. Like if we're really talking about nuclear holocaust, I don't think people are going, I hope my 401k is in order. At least I'm not, but neither here nor there. I mean, again, what's the logic? Let's have a mine full of papers in case there's nuclear war. If that's the argument against efficiency, I mean, I don't know. Anyway, I hope our friend Jim Pfaff understands this. Maybe he doesn't. I don't know, Jim. Today's the day. If you want to pick a fight with yours truly, welcome in, because today's the day. Everybody wants a piece of me. President of the Conservative Caucus. Jim, we were talking about this mine storing 22,000 boxes of people's papers related to their retirement. And all I said was, it feels like we could do a more efficient thing than that. And I'm being inundated with people that say, well, what if there's a nuclear war? So I don't know, Jim. Tell me if I'm crazy. Am I crazy that I think we could be doing it a little more efficiently? 700 people in a mine with papers?
Well, with great respect to all of the wonderful miners in Pennsylvania where this thing, I think, is located. No, you and I are tracking perfectly. By the way, good. Did you notice the pictures of the mine? Apparently, at the very bottom of it, there's water standing everywhere. So, I mean, you're going to have these papers potentially harmed there. But what in the world are we concerned with by even making or pushing back against such a statement? It is absurd to the greatest degree possible, and it just kind of shows how twisted the thinking of many people have become, not just in Washington, D.C., but other parts of the country as well, too, who support this bureaucratic, tangled ball of wire that we are trying to unravel right now.
I said earlier in the show, and maybe this is also too harsh, but again, Jim, I'm taking my pulse today through guys like you because you're people I trust. Jim runs, again, the Conservative Caucus. So let's listen in, if we could, please, to this pair that was interviewed yesterday on 60 Minutes, cut 619. This is somebody called Christina Dry. She worked for USAID.
People are really scared. I think that, 12 days ago, people knew where their next paycheck was coming from. They knew how they were going to pay for their kids' daycare, their medical bills, and then all gone overnight.
All gone overnight for Christina Dry and Adam Dubard, fired this month in the chaotic shutdown of foreign aid distributed by the U.S. Agency for International Development, USAID.
Here's the thing, Jim, and I think you're probably going to share my assessment here. The country has a problem when it's something like, I don't know how many millions it is of our fellow citizens are being paid courtesy of taxpayers, but it's too many. And I don't think you're a bad person because you work for the government. But I do think we all have to have a serious conversation with ourselves about, can we have a healthy, sustainable economy and country if huge swaths of this country are collecting paychecks from taxpayers? So, Jim, please help me out here.
Well, we have more than 1% of our entire population getting paid in any form or fashion by government. But please spare me. Listen, I spent nearly 9 years working on Capitol Hill. And I got to tell you, when these people in the D.C. area complain like this, it drives me nuts. We are on day 28 of the Democrats stand up for the bureaucrats against the citizens, because that's what's really going on here. She didn't take into account in part because of her efforts. I mean, USAID has been totally massaging and twisting our political processes here in the United States, illegally, I might add. I don't know if she's directly doing it. She very well may be. But they've been twisting our political process for a long time. And what's the result been? The fear of thousands and thousands and thousands of people in North Carolina, Tennessee, and South Carolina and Georgia who got totally pushed off to the side when this hurricane went through there not long ago, and they're still suffering greatly. Yes. And the people that are suffering in other parts of the country by high prices because the spending is outrageous. Keep in mind, we had about a $4.5 trillion total annual spend in Washington, D.C. in 2019. And now to this point, after COVID, it's over $7 trillion. Sorry, guys. We don't need $3 more trillion on an annual basis. That is totally government largesse, which is destroying the country. So the people that she should be concerned about are the American people who are having their wealth stolen from them to pay her like she was likely making $150,000 to $200,000 a year. And yes, if she's married, her husband was probably doing the thing. So they're in a Tony row house in downtown D.C. or Alexandria, Virginia, that is fabulous, that's really expensive, $1.2 to $2 million, while everyone else in the country is suffering. 6 of the 10 wealthiest counties in this country surround Washington, D.C.
It's stunning. Jim Pfaff is with us, president of the Conservative Caucus. I'm in no mood, frankly. I'm just not in any mood, with the price of things as they are. And as I said earlier, I've worked in the private sector most of my life. All of us kind of have this sort of Damocles hanging over our heads. All of us who work in the private sector, all of us wonder, is this month the month that the company downsizes? Is this month the month I'm cut loose? All of us have to prepare for that inevitable day that the company's going to decide, the days of most of us retiring with the gold watch are long gone. But for some reason, there's this attitude that if you work for government, you're untouchable, you're due a cost of living raise every year, and you just get to sail into a government pension and Benny system in your retirement. And I resent the hell out of it, quite frankly, Jim.
Well, and actually, they are untouchable. So the civil service acts that have been passed mostly since FDR's administration, but even as far back as the late 19th century, had this concept that we needed professional people to be in the government, so-called. And listen, government bureaucrats, government workers don't make our lives better. They don't. Their job is to fulfill the policy that has been laid out, appropriated by Congress and laid out by the executive branch. But these people are untouchable. We're going to have continued arguments and continued lawsuits about the people that Donald Trump at the with the information that Elon Musk is giving him, are firing out of the federal government. They're going to claim that they cannot be fired, and this has been a big problem for decades. It's one of the reasons our government has grown so much. I've kind of calculated on the top of my head, and I need to do a more precise calculation, but I'm convinced that somewhere between 60 to 80% of every dollar we spend in the federal government is unconstitutional. Now, by the way, that includes Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid, which are not allowed by Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution. We'll have to deal with those. They're political matters, but we can start where Elon Musk is by finding all the waste, fraud, and abuse in those programs, because there is waste, fraud, and abuse. And now we've gotten one step further to making them better. But there's so much of what we do. 50% of the people working in the federal government could be let go, and we're all going to be fine. By the way, just like happened to X under Elon Musk, it can happen. They really, what's really angering them is that Elon Musk is making money on X after cutting the waste, fraud, and abuse, literally, that was going on in Twitter when he purchased it. That model should be working in the federal government, because people like you and I who have worked in the private sector, we've had to face the very same things as you pointed to earlier. So this is where we're at, and we need to be standing with Donald Trump and in all of these efforts.
couple of weeks ago, Jim Pfaff, again, president of the Conservative Caucus, it became clear. We started hearing rumblings about it, and now it's come to fruition. But we were watching it as it just started to bubble a little bit. And that was these senators, these Republican senators saying, let's deal with tax cuts and spending later. We've got these legislative priorities that we can tackle right now. And they've apparently been petitioning Trump. Let's just skip trying to pass tax cuts right now. Let's just skip that stuff. Wait. Meanwhile, on the House side, those guys are saying, no, we want to pass all of that. Our legislative agenda, tax cuts, spending cuts, all of it in one big, beautiful bill. And then, of course, inside the House are conservatives who say we want more aggressive tax cuts and more aggressive spending cuts than Speaker Johnson wants. So this is almost a three-tiered fight. Jim, where does it go?
Well, everyone should keep in mind the fact, just before I answer your question, everyone should keep in mind the fact that the weak link in this entire process is Republicans in Congress. And never forget that this, I referred earlier to a raise from $4.5 trillion to over $7 trillion in our annual spend out of the federal budget. That has been facilitated with Republican votes. Not every Republican in Congress, but most of them. And this is the weak link. So if Mike Johnson is not willing to go as far as the most conservative of people in his caucus want, then he's not going far enough. Because what Donald Trump is doing leads, and should lead rightly, to that more aggressive approach to cutting government spending. I won't forget the fact that just shortly after, I think it was just before the inauguration or just after, there was an interview with John Thune on one of the leftist media outlets, and he was asked about Donald Trump's approach to all this. And one of the things he said that was very telling, and especially as someone like me in Washington, D.C., that has been in Washington, D.C. and watched these games get played out, that he said, we want to support the president and his agenda, but we also need to help him understand basically how the Senate works. And you sit back and say, particularly when you have this reconciliation opportunity, why? What do you mean? What is there to learn? You need Jim, to be aggressive and do what the American people just asked for.
So beautifully said, and I got to run, but the Conservative Caucus is one to follow. We will stay in touch, Jim, as this unfolds. TheConservativeCaucus.org. Thank you, my friend. Great to talk to you.